Okay. I think that'll work.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
Imagine 6 feet.
Yes. Yes, we are.
The video distortion makes it look closer, but honestly.
Exactly. We are masters of folding time and space.
Exactly.
In fact, we're not even having this conversation in real time. I sat down, had the conversation, we cleansed the air, and then she came down and she had the conversation. It's really brilliant.
We actually should put a smoking bowl of sage right here. That would help.
Linda's credibility.
Well, it depends on with whom we're talking. Okay, so what we're doing in the Aubrey Diana show today, and for this next series of videos, is we're discussing this book, How the Immune System Works, 4th edition, but it's from 2012, by Lauren how would you say her name? Samperek?
Yeah.
Samperek. Yeah, her. She's great. I love the way she writes. And this, Wiley desktop edition of Course Smart, anyway, it's good. It's interesting. And so Aubrey knows more about the immune system than I do in her head. My body knows quite a bit about it because I have an immune-mediated, lifelong bodily experience with ankylosing spondylitis, which is why I originally got this book. And I started reading it, and it's a serious education, and I only got a little ways in, and then I put it aside to go on with the rest of my life when I first bought this. But now I am motivated to learn more, and I have this opportunity because tell us a little, Aubrey, about why you actually know something about this.
Well, let's see. So first of all, I've been touching bodies since I was 6 years old. And I have been touching immune. Well,
wait, explain that?
Sure. I have been doing body work and giving massages and supporting people in lots of pain and often from autoimmune conditions.
Mm-hmm.
Since I was little, since I was 6, and my mom was a body worker, and for a long time, a large portion of my clients were immune compromised or autoimmune disease oriented folks. So and I got to work with that, a lot of my clients I got to work with in really intensive situations. So I get to work on them, twice a week for 2 hours at a time, and we'd work together for a few years. So I'd get to really understand their bodies in a non-verbal kind of way. And it's just been a really interesting journey to, get to the place where, I had I think probably the most illustrative example is I had a client who was in her early 90s, and had Alzheimer's, so she wouldn't speak at all, but I could actually get to the point where I would be able to be totally clear that she was getting a UTI a week before she would show any symptoms. And it's really difficult to describe how I know that, because at that level so much of it is nonverbal, and it's not even linear thinking, and it's just not at all a scientific way to describe it, but I got really accurate with it. And beyond the physical body work, I had also, my teenage dream had been to become a virologist, and so I've been studying this stuff since I was probably 12 or 13 years old, and was reading all the hot zone and Ebola stuff and all of that as a teenager. So even though I took quite a few years away from it, that early informing of how our bodies relate to our environment has just been a really valuable lesson, and it's kind of informed, it's definitely informed my work with my clients over the years too. And I had started getting back into it through my own experiences with several parasite infections over a few years, and as far as that goes, my own experience of there's something in my body that is not mine, and my own practices inside of the shamanic community and meditative practices and stuff like that just got me really attuned to, wait, what is going on here? Because this isn't me, and this is, a couple of days and even a week before something really shows up that I could go symptomatically to a doctor or to a practitioner. And it's just really drawn my attention to how can we know our own bodies at that level, and how can we really support our own health and healing through just really having that relationship with ourselves.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So these are the kinds of conversations that we have. I mean, I don't think I brushed my hair yet today, but we just got inspired because it's Sunday morning and we had pancakes and bacon.
Yes.
And this has been a conversation that we've talked about having, but now we're starting to have it. And so grab the moment, because you are going to benefit from this, because it's super interesting. And I think I just want to add that I think the theme of today's little session is, how is it that we know things before the symptoms are there?
Mm-hmm.
And this is, tricky, because Western medicine is absolutely built on what can be seen by others, what's verifiable, what's the external expression. And as you said earlier, Aubrey, like if you sense it earlier than that, then the best you can describe it is like intuition, right?
Mm-hmm.
One of the things that goes with AS is this eye condition called uveitis or iritis, and it's something I've had, I don't know, probably. I actually tried counting it up, I tried estimating it to a doctor once, and I estimated it like 40 or 50 times, and then I went back and did a more educated estimate, and it's probably 60 or 80. Like, I've had it so many times. And one of the benefits of that kind of experience, and my mom gets it too, so she and I talk about this all the time, is like, it's there. It's coming on at the earliest sign, because it's super painful and dangerous. It can produce blindness. It's treated with topical steroids that you're only supposed to do by going to the optometrist or the ophthalmologist or someone like that, and then you start taking the topical steroids, and you've got to be monitored, because they used to think the steroids could create, I forget whether it's ocular degeneration or something in anyone. I think the more recent research is that there's some people that are set up to do that, and if it hasn't happened for you, it's not likely. But this is not medical advice, just describing my experience. Because what started happening is I would go to the optometrist or ophthalmologist or whoever, and they couldn't see it yet, right? They couldn't see. What they look for is the white blood cells floating around, and yet by the time they could see it, it was too advanced. I would have to use the steroids.
Right.
And by catching it earlier, I could shift something and not have to go to the steroids. That's what I learned to do over time. So we're talking about how that's absolutely related to intuition, right? Intuition at some level is something you never will be able to document, because it's a knowing. Yeah. I don't know. Maybe it's not never able to document.
I think you can. I don't know if we'll ever be able to really track down the mechanisms of intuition, but it is definitely something that we can track and validate.
Yes.
And that's, I think you're right. I think that's as close as we're going to get to being able to prove intuition the way that in the Western world we would want to have this scientific proof of intuition.
And I'm struck by, like, there's two different versions. One is, how can we describe and or prove or validate intuition as a process? And then there's, how can the process of intuition be explained as we learn some underlying mechanisms? And so I think that's where we were starting to go with this immune system. So, quick recap, the immune system has 3 components. And Aubrey has been letting me summarize this to her, because this is my way of learning. There's the physical barriers, the skin, the mucosal membranes that happen on the inside part of our exposed body. Then there's the innate immune system, which is, what we often think about in the immune system of like these macrophages running through the bloodstream or in our tissues and going and grabbing the bacteria and eating them up and cleaning out the system. But then there's the thing that we all are most thinking about today in the days of coronavirus is the adaptive immune system. How does the adaptive immune system work? How does it become possible that a virus we've never seen before is still something our bodies can fight? And what I learned from this fun book is that, here, let me get the numbers right. So the adaptive immune system starts or is expressed through B cells, and we have 3 billion of them. They're white blood cells. And those 3 billion cells, we can divide them up into 5 classes of antibodies. But forget about the 5 classes for a minute. Basically, those 3 billion cells are 100 million different kinds of B cells, and we have about 30 of each. 30, a little like storage of 30 that will kill this thing, and 30 that will help with that thing, and 30 that will help with this thing. 100 million. That means that we are already in our bodies ready to deal with any novel coronavirus or anything that comes our way. We are already resourced to do it. The challenge is that the body has to have the experience, learn from the experience, develop the response, and eventually deal with that. And so what we were just talking about was how something that Aubrey is brilliant at, knowing in her own body when she's going to get sick before she gets sick. Mm-hmm. You explain this sure. Difference between the symptoms and the knowing and the blah blah.
Sure. Well, I'll dip back into the innate immune system. So in the innate immune system, you already mentioned the macrophages, and that's one of the main, as I understand it, it's one of the main operators kind of operating at all times inside of our system. And macrophages are basically these things that identify in particular bacteria, but other types of microbes that are not meant to be in our body. And they take about, they start in the inside the bone marrow, and then they enter the blood, and they take about 3 days to mature in the blood. And then they leave the blood and then go kind of wander in through the interstitial space between our cells and do what they need to do, which is cleaning and eating and destroying things that are not meant to be there. Well, in my own experience, that's really consistent with there's about a 3-day lag time. And I think that a lot of people can actually relate to this 3-day thing of like, oh, maybe I'm getting sick, but it takes 3 days for the fatigue to set in and the mucus to set in and the sneezing to set in. And to me, that's a brilliant, like you were saying, that's a brilliant, precious piece of time, those 3 days, because during that 3 days is when, so if I'm exposed to something and my body recognizes it and it goes to ramp my immune system up, it's going to take 3 full days of my immune system trying to ramp itself up before those cells are fully mature and they can actually go and do the things that they need to do in the body. The way I understand it, most of the symptoms that we have when we're sick, it's not the pathogen causing it, it's our immune system trying to expel the pathogen from the cells, from the tissues, and get it out of our body. So again, that moment of that awareness of, oh, something's off, I don't feel quite right. And then those few days of doubting ourselves of, am I sick? Am I not? Am I imagining this? Am I not? Am I making myself sick? Am I not? I've actually found that it's really great to just let go of the doubt and let go of the questioning. And they're still questioning, but it becomes more a question of, oh, what is going on? And get curious about, hey, what is my body trying to communicate? And what's what is different in my system that isn't normal? And if I go back even beyond that point of where my immune system itself has gotten the hit of, oh, I gotta ramp up, for a couple of days before that, if I'm paying attention through my meditative practices or when I'm working with people and just being inside of mindfulness techniques, I will notice, even before I begin to start questioning, am I really sick, I'll start noticing that I'm thinking differently than normal. And, you know, I've done enough work on myself at this point that I know my typical anger patterns. I know my typical, this is what irritates me. I know those conversations and those voices. So when I start to have irritations with things that have never irritated me before, or worries and concerns and fears that just normally are not consistent with my personality or my behavior, that's really become a point in time for me to really get that, oh, hey, there might be something new that my body is working with. There might be a new population of things that are creating different chemicals, which now my brain is interpreting, my nervous system is interpreting as new thoughts to have. And if I'm paying enough attention, I can actually begin to supplement or even do, you know, double down on my energetic practices or double down on my meditation and double down on what I'm focusing on and actually alter how deep the infection gets, because I can have a relationship with my own, you know, we all have relationships with our immune system, and we can actually I can actually start to I wouldn't say strengthen the immune, like it's not like I'm telling it to go to war prematurely, but I can at least begin to increase its vigilance quite a bit earlier than what most people have their own experience of getting sick as. You know, there is an opportunity to, like you said, alter the course, but there's actually an opportunity to, rather than it be going to war with something, actually it becomes an opportunity to have a dialogue and more of a diplomatic experience back and forth. And I think at this, I think I'll just mention that in some ways, in some ways we can look at this like if I were to travel to a new country, to a completely foreign country, I've never had the food before, never have experienced the vegetables, my innate system that I'm walking around with is not going to know that environment at all. Everything in that environment is going to look like a threat because my body doesn't know it. And that's part of what a lot of times when people go to foreign countries and have food poisoning or have some kind of gastric distress, it's not even because they ingested a pathogen. It's because they brought in a whole new set of things into their body that their body doesn't recognize, and the body just freaks out. So to the extent that I know my own body and my body knows the environment, the more that I'm able to recognize, oh, hey, there's something new, it's an opportunity to dialogue with it and to expand my repertoire and expand my friendship within the environment. But if I'm distracted, if I already don't feel well, if I'm not resourced, there's no other way for my body to engage that other than that's a threat and I must keep it out. And that kind of takes us a little bit off topic, but it's a way in which it's something that we've talked about before, that our immune system is not just an army. It can also be like an entire diplomatic corps, and a way to gain more access to our environment, and a way to even gain more awareness of what's in our environment.
So here's what I want to do with this moment. I want to summarize a few things and then draw this one to a close, because none of us can take in too much, right? I mean, no, let me say it the other way. All of us are taking in too much all the time, and bite-sized pieces of this is what are going to get us there. So first of all, one summary I want to do is that neither of us have degrees in this. And so this conversation isn't about we are the experts and listen to this. It's really for us sharing what we know, but also demonstrating what we believe we all should be doing, which is taking all of this knowledge and thinking it through our experience and trying it out loud and bouncing it off each other and listening for the gaps in the experience or the ahas in the experience, and finding ways to get stronger in our ability to think and our ability to communicate with each other about these things that matter, and doing that from like the solid groundedness of our experience. That's point one. The second thing is that the way that I would say that last bit, like you were saying, if you can start to notice it, you can put your immune system on alert to get stronger or do something. It's as possible that it's the immune system saying to you,
yes, yeah, absolutely,
hey, before we have to, instead of a battle, could we just have a little bit more sleep right now?
Yeah.
Could we have, that kind of thing? And whichever it is, it's probably both. It's probably a cyclical loop. And so the point that I heard as you were talking about it is the partnership.
Mm-hmm.
How is it that we get into deeper partnership with our immune system in our bodies? And that is going to be key to the coronavirus or any other pandemic, or actually just living good, healthy lives. A third piece that I want to say, this is a little tidbit that I think we have to come back to because it's so profound, that if what happens, and this is what happens, the virus enters and is in the body before the body knows how to respond for some amount of time. And when the body starts to respond, now we can measure it, and now we can feel it, and now there are all the symptoms. That means once our body starts responding, it gets noisier. Mm-hmm. The information gets noisier. The information is now, how high is the fever, and how much snot, and what color is it, and how tired am I? And so you get all of the messages from the immune system. And what is potentially really precious about that time period when only intuition can identify it is that's the time when we can hear the pathogen. Mm-hmm. That's the time when the sound that you were saying of, hey, this is not my irritation, this is an irritation that's unfamiliar to me. I mean, whether everyone would experience it that way isn't important. It's a good example of there is the sound of something new that we need to be able to learn and hear. And that window before it kicks in is important. It's confusing because it's also the time period that, oh my God, my projections and my fears and I think it's this, and oh my goodness, I just looked on Wikipedia and now I think I have whatever, right?
Mm-hmm. Or how am I trying to cheat the system, and where do I just want to take a day off, and how am I taking advantage of this, and blah, 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 blah.
That's right. There's so much other noise that is in there. That's one of the reasons we don't trust that time period, mm-hmm. right? Because with all that other noise, if you haven't been doing your personal work, and if you don't have tools to silence the pretense, then you're never going to hear this other underlying thing, because all of that mental chatter is all you ever will hear, mm-hmm. until it starts getting really physical. But we want to be able to hear it. We want to hear it in all of its different phases because, this is reality. We want to be able to hear reality and engage with it. Okay, final point,
yes.
And this is the teaser for the next episode. So you said something that I think may not be quite the correct interpretation, but now I want to go dig in and learn more. So that those 3 days, you attributed it to the innate immune system and how the macrophages take 3 days in the blood system before they mature into the ability to fight. Mm-hmm. I think, even though that's 3 days and you experience a 3-day window, I don't think it's related to the innate system.
Okay.
Because at any one moment, yes, there's some macrophages maturing in my bloodstream, but at the same time, there's a whole ton of them that are mature and they're already there doing their job. and their job is pre-programmed. They don't learn, they just do.
Right.
So I think that what you're describing as that window of time of something's here, but my body doesn't know how to respond yet, is the adaptive immune system. It's that time period where the 30 antigen, no, 30, are they antigens or antibodies? I have to go learn this shit. Anyway, the 30, the 100 million
the specialist.
category specialists, right? Those 30 and the pathogen end up in a similar part of the body so that even there's the beginning recognition, and then the learning, oh, there is a recognition, and then the production time period. Like, so anyway, that's my theory.
I agree. See, I agree that there's some that probably both are going on. Part of what I'm kind of acknowledging is, even though, so it's when my body is just like humming along at, hey, second gear, I'm not too worried about stuff that's in my environment, the level of macrophages will kind of level out.
Oh, right.
In my body, right? And
right.
and all of the other things about the macrophages, they end up using chemical mediators to let the body know you need to go into inflammation response. They're the ones that end up inciting the cytokines so that they begin to do they do what the cytokines do and get the body's the more chemical side
right.
of that whole process.
They send the message. It's right. time. Yeah. React.
But there is a lag time between, okay, well, we're at peace with our environment, we've got good relationships with our environment, but there is a point at which, even inside of the innate system, that there has to be this ramp up.
It's true, but if you think about getting a splinter and how quickly it gets red and swollen and all that kind of stuff, it's the innate system ramps up very fast because it's a very simple thing. Right? It doesn't do 17 million different things. It does the thing that it does.
True. And even inside of that, it usually takes about 3 days for pus to form.
Yes.
Right. So there's
right.
There even inside of that, there's the difference between the
and the pus is the innate system.
Yeah, the pus is the actual white blood cells that have gone in to attack the things that are icky, and typically the pus is the dead. I mean, like, they've gone in, they've shot their wad, right. They've done what they can do, and they've expired. But the body doesn't want that entering back into the bloodstream. So it kind of becomes this little sequestered space. So it's such a great space of inquiry.
That's right.
Like what even. Especially when we're talking more about the viruses than the bacterial infections, there's a way in which, you're referring to, like, the innate immune system doesn't deal as well with viruses. There can, once the cells get infected by the virus, the body knows, hey, there's something. This is trash. Right? Yeah, we don't like what's going on here, and it'll still take some time for the body to kind of like rearrange, even at a metabolic level. The body has to take some time to switch gears to go from one state to another, and all of that. So I totally agree that there's definitely part of that lag time is definitely the adaptive immune system having to kick in and even run into it, and even have that recon, and the viral load in the body has to be high enough that it can even run into one or two of them, or
right.
That kind of thing. But I really do think that there is something about the immune system, the more innate part of the immune system, needing to go, oh, hey, we got to actually, like, mobilize. We got to get out there. And just like the two sides of the nervous system have very different ways of operating. When we're healthy and we're building and we're in that growth phase, that's a very different thing than, okay, now I'm sick and now I have to use all of this different chemistry.
Totally. Well, so with that brilliant summary, we will end today's episode of Aubrey and Diana Learn Immunology, and from each other, and a book
Uh-huh.
And yeah, we're going to keep doing this and we're going to keep learning together. And we hope you learn something too. And I already see that along the way, we're going to have to consult an expert or two, like our friend Cho.
Yes. Fabulous.
And so, I just want to say before we close that we do very much believe in sheltering in place right now and the 6-foot difference. And even though we live together and have sheltered in place now for a month, and so we've kind of intertwined everything, we still actually don't even touch each other.
Yeah, it's been a long time without a hug from my housemate.
Yeah. Although I did see someone who wrapped their daughter in a sheet to hug them.
Huh.
I'm not sure it was good modeling, but it was on the news, so it was some.
Huh.
So we hope that we all get smarter about our bodies for so many reasons.
Agreed.
Love you. Bye. Oh, shoot.
Did it not record?
It's still recording. Oh. No, it did. It was... There she is eating an apple.
This is a really good apple, too.